Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you for joining today. We'd like to seek the blessings of Radha Madhav, Radha Shyamsundar, Krishna Balaram, Srila Prabhupada, Gurudev, and the assembled devotees, so that we can share a few things about Bhagavad Gita. So far we've done, I believe, 3 chapters. Chapter 1, perhaps the most important chapter in the Bhagavad Gita. Most lessons certainly come from that chapter, where Arjuna is describing his dilemma, because Krishna put him in front of his greatest challenge. And often we find that happens. The challenge that we don't want is right upon us, especially when we request the Lord for protection. He gives us our toughest challenge to meet, but he also gives us the knowledge and the know-how how to deal with these challenges. So the Lord was requested by Arjuna to take the chariot in the middle of the battlefield, and of course Krishna took it right in front of Arjuna's most beloved person, the grandfather Bhishma, who was also happened to be the strongest person on the battlefield. And that unnerved Arjuna to the extent that he was willing to not fight. And that leads on to, and he gave many reasons why not to fight. Good reasons, which then Krishna, over the rest of the Bhagavad Gita, explained to him how he should conduct his duty. So in the 2nd chapter, Arjuna actually surrenders to Krishna, who immediately takes him out of the bodily platform and puts him on the spiritual platform, on the platform of the soul. Immediately. This is the beauty of the Bhagavad Gita. It takes you away from the material into the spiritual from the get-go. So in the 2nd instruction he gives to Arjuna is about his duty, what he's supposed to be doing. He gives it in a nutshell. And then the 3rd part of the 2nd chapter is where Krishna describes the qualities, what a perfect person looks like, because that's what Arjuna asked him. So he describes the ideal person. Then the 3rd chapter is about Karma Yoga, which we did, I think, 2 weeks ago. And Krishna is explaining in a little bit more detail about that person who does his work, he does his duty, but he's not attached to the fruits of labor. He just does his duty because there's a sense of obligation to do it without worrying about whether he gains or he loses. That's Karma Yoga. It's the beginning stage of yoga. We shouldn't mistake that to be the end stage. It's only the beginning stage. Why? Because in Karma Yoga, there may be no concept of the Supreme Lord. Because in Bhakti Yoga, what happens is one is not attached to the fruits, just like in Karma Yoga, but then one offers the fruits to the Supreme Lord. And so that becomes very close to Bhakti Yoga. So now we are on chapter 4, which is Gyan Yoga. But before we go on to chapter 4, I remember last time, and I was reminded today by Ishwari and Kishori, they have about 33 questions. And I was thinking we could go through the questions. Questions and answers are always good. Questions are very important. And I have to say, I really like questions. Some of these, of course, I may not be able to answer, but it shows that one is thinking about the subject matter. One is listening, and at the same time, one is thinking, analyzing, and then asking a question. And I always feel very happy when that happens, because it means we're not just speaking and perhaps nothing is being understood on the other side. But by asking the question, it means that, wow, somebody's actually listening and actually wanting to inquire more. That's very gratifying for me. So apart from Ishwari and Kishori, there may be others who have questions. Please do ask, but I will start off with Ishwari and Kishori. Go for it.
We left off last week at why does Ravan have 10 heads?
Okay. Good question. I think he probably asked for 10 heads. I'm not 100% sure, but he definitely asked for a number of lives, and together with that came the heads. So maybe he asked for 10 lives, but I'm not 100% sure of the answer, but he ended up with 10 heads nonetheless. And every time a head would get shot off, another would pop up. So,
Okay.
and you know, when he goes to a restaurant, he struggles because the restaurant charges per head. He's only got one stomach, but he got 10 heads, you know. So he struggles in restaurants. Anyway, that's beside the point.
How did Ravan get so many powers?
He, his Isht there is Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva is very generous with the boons that he gives. He doesn't look at who's asking for this boon. Whether that boon is good for that person or not, Lord Shiva doesn't care. He just gives. One of the compassionate natures of Lord Shiva. Lord Vishnu is different. You ask something from Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu will think, is this going to be good for this devotee or not so good? If it's not so good, he'll give what is being asked, but in a way that it makes it good for that devotee. But Lord Shiva, he just gives. Now, whatever, like one time there was a demon called Brikasura. Brikasura also prayed to Lord Shiva, and his method of worship was really tough. What he was doing was he was cutting his flesh off and offering it to Shiva. He was going to cut his head off because Shiva hadn't appeared. And at that moment, Shiva appeared saying, "Hey, you foolish guy, what do you want? What do you want from me?" He said, "Well, I want a boon that whoever's head I touch blows up." And Lord Shiva says, "Tathastu, yes." Didn't think that this might be not a good boon to give. And then the crazy demon said, "Okay, I want to enjoy your wife Parvati and I want to touch your head." So then Lord Shiva, he ran from that place. Eventually, Lord Vishnu came and tricked Vakasura that, "Hey, this fellow Shiva, look at him. He's covered in dust. You know, he's got snakes around his neck. He doesn't even wear many clothes. You know, what sort of boon do you think this fellow can give you? Just think about it. Just touch your own head, see what happens." And Vakasura touched his head and blew up. So the thing is, Lord Shiva will. So Ravan, he had this demoniac mentality. He wanted as much power as possible. So he kept asking for different boons. You can use it. So that's how he got his powers.
That demon wasn't very clever because I don't think he could kill anyone properly if that person had like a spear.
Lord Vishnu is very, very clever in the sense that he can fool anybody to do anything. So that's what happened. If he had any sense, he would have touched somebody else's head instead of his own.
Why is Lord Hanuman so devoted to Lord Rama?
Because he loves the qualities of Ram. He just, from eternity to now, he is the greatest servant of Lord Ram. And the reason is because Lord Ramachandra's character is so amazing, so, straightforward, that Hanuman is just completely in awe and reverence. He's completely enamored by the Lord Ramachandra. One time, actually, he was introduced to Lord Krishna saying, "This is, Avatari Krishna, and your Ram comes from him, Avatar of Krishna." And Hanuman bowed down and said, "My dear Lord Krishna, you're magnificent, but I still love my Ram." So his mood was just like that. And the thing is, it's not one-way traffic. This is the thing with God. he reciprocates. One time Narad Muni went to see Ramachandra, and Narad Muni had been told by Hanuman that the Lord keeps a diary of all the devotees that think of him. So when Narad Muni went to Lord Ram, he said to him, I hear you keep a diary of devotees that think of you. Can I see the diary? So Ramchandra said, yes, here it is. And his name was right at the top, Narad Muni. And then he started looking, where's Hanuman's name? He couldn't find Hanuman's name anywhere in that book. Anyway, then he went back to Hanuman at some point, and he said to Hanuman, you're right. Rama has a book, but I didn't see your name in that book of devotees who remember God. So then Hanuman said, actually, yeah, he's got another book as well. Has he? Oh, okay. So then when Narad Muni went to see Ram next time, he asked him, I hear you have another book. What's that all about? And Ramachandra said, yes, I do. I have another book. Here it is. And in this book, these are the devotees I think of. Not the devotees who think of me, but the devotees I think of. Narad Muni opened the book, and guess whose name was there? Only Hanuman. Only one devotee, Hanuman. His name was in that book. So just as Hanuman is devoted to Ram, Ram is also devoted to Hanuman. This is one of the things about the Supreme Lord. He reciprocates. He's not just keen to take the worship, but he'll give it back and much more to the devotee. This is the point about the Lord. He can take with, we can give with two hands. But when the Lord gives, he has many, many hands. How much can we take, So that's the sort of attitude of the Lord. Hope that was okay.
Yes, that was a very good explanation. Thank you. Why was Lord Hanuman born half monkey?
I know we say monkey, but actually it's not quite monkey. It's Vanra, isn't it? It's Vanra. It's it's in between race between the monkeys and the humans. But even he had perhaps a body of a Vanra, his intelligence was far greater than any human being. He was greater than any demigod. And that was evident and because his mother and father, his mother is Anjana, but his father is combination of Shiva and Vayu. Very powerful combination. And immediately upon his birth, when he was a little tiny, he swallowed up the sun, and he did amazing things which nobody else could do throughout his life. So yes, he may have had a body of a Vanra, but actually his consciousness was which is far superior than even the demigods. And the thing which is what the Lord gives us through this pastime of Ramayana is, you don't have to be a human being to serve him. This is where Lord Ramachandra's worship surpasses anybody else's, because he accepted the worship of the monkeys. He accepted the worship of the squirrel who was putting the little pebbles in between those rocks which Hanuman was putting. And he accepted even that savor, that tiny little, how much can a squirrel possibly do for Lord Ram? But Lord Ramachandra is so amazing. He accepts the savor of even a squirrel. As good as Hanuman's savor. This is the thing which really blew my mind when I heard this pastime. Hanuman was putting these huge boulders of rocks and whatever else. And this little squirrel was putting tiny little grains of sand. And Hanuman said to the squirrel, just step out of the way, because I want to step on you while I'm putting this great service for Ram. And Ramachandra heard that and he said, no, Hanuman, his service is as good as yours. Wow. I thought, wow, amazing. Because he's doing it to the best of his ability, just as Hanuman is doing it to the best of his ability. So many, like Jambavan was a bear, but Lord Ramachandra accepted the service of Jambavan. So in this way, Lord shows that anybody can serve him, anybody, and he'll accept that service. So sweet, so sweet.
I see.
Mhm.
Which army was bigger, the Kauravas army or the Pandavas army?
Oh, Kauravas. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, about 14% bigger, if I'm not mistaken. It might be a bit more, might be a lot more, but it was something like that. It was like at least a minimum of 8th to a 7th bigger. They had many, many more soldiers on their side of the Kauravas compared to the Pandavas.
Who made the Maha mantra?
Wow, great question. The original source of the Maha mantra, it originates from the flute of Krishna. This is what is described by the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, that when Krishna plays the flute, it actually is the origin of the Hare Krishna Maha mantra. And it comes all the way from Golok Vrindavan, through Vaikuntha, through the Brahmajyoti, through Kailash, into the material world, into the ears of Lord Brahma. So it ultimately comes from Krishna's flute.
I see. That's really nice.
Yeah, it is. And that's one of the things, when we chant the Maha mantra, we get this pleasure of, my dear Lord, I'm associating directly with you. These are not just your names, but this mantra has also come from you directly. So that's very powerful.
What did Duryodhana do in his past life that made him so ignorant?
Do we know Duryodhana's past life? I can't recall. I think I did hear somewhere, long, long time back, his past life, but I can't recall the detail, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Why do most pictures depict Lord Shiva's skin as completely blue or green when only his throat changed color?
Yes, that's a really good question. And we need to do some research on this. Thank you for actually pointing that out, because you're absolutely right. He's described as Nilkant, isn't he? He's got this blue throat because of the poison that he drank, and he held it on his throat. But actually his color, I believe, is whitish, but that part of the body is blue. I've seen pictures where he is white and then that part of is blue, and then I've seen, as you said, pictures where he's completely blue. That's a good question. We will do some research on that and establish exactly. We just did some research on Lord Ramachandra, because we're about to do the Pran Pratishtha for Sita, Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman. And Ram is a golden greenish color, really amazing color. So we've asked our wonderful artist to paint him that color. Sita is golden, as is Lakshman as well. But in terms of Lord Shiva, good question. We will do some research and eventually we'll get back to you.
Okay then. What does the name Ramayan mean?
So Ramayan, story of Ram, isn't it?
No, Ayan is the place of the place.
The place of Ram. This is Jayanti is just saying Ayan means place. Ramayan.
Like you have Vidyaya, which is the place of knowledge. So it's the place of Ram.
Place of Ram. Ramayan. Story of Ram. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Who created Hanuman Chalisa?
Tulsidas, I believe. Is that right? Tulsidas, Hanuman Chalisa.
Yeah.
He wrote the Hanuman Chalisa. Yeah. Tulsidas is a wonderful devotee of Lord Ram, and of course Hanuman as well. He revered Hanuman. So he wrote. Do you know that, Priya?
Yes.
Oh, well done. Well done. You'll have to recite it one day. Very good. Brilliant. Well done.
Why did Lord Krishna abduct Rukmini? Wouldn't that set a bad example to the world?
Oh, yes. This is the thing about Krishna. See, Ramachandra, he was very particular about his behavior. He wouldn't do anything wrong. Right? He was always very straightforward. Even the way he walks was straightforward. Krishna, on the other hand, although one and the same person, right? Ram and Krishna, no difference. But there is a difference because their moods are different. As Krishna, he doesn't walk straight, right? He doesn't stand straight. He's got this three bending form. And when he walks with the gait of an elephant, you know. Nothing straightforward about Krishna. He says one thing, he means something completely different. Ramachandra would say one thing and he meant it. Krishna, he says one thing, means something totally different. Why? Why does he kidnap Rukmini? Why does he break his vows? He vowed not to fight in the Mahabharata, but yet he picked up a weapon to kill Bhishma. Why? Now, the reason is Krishna sells himself to his devotee completely, even at his own expense. He's willing to take a bad name for himself to please his devotee. He is such a master that he's willing to take the fall for his devotee, to please his devotee. This is beyond the call of duty, beyond the call of the Lord to do that. But he goes extra mile just to please his devotee. So Rukmini wrote to him and said to him that I'm about to be married to some crazy fellow called Shishupal. And I have heard about you from all the sages that have come here. And I've fallen in love with you. And I want to marry you. If you come to rescue me from my fate, I will be so happy. If you don't come, then I will just finish my life because I cannot live without you, even though I haven't met you. And Krishna felt very obliged. When he read that letter, he said, okay, I'm coming for you. Even though it was going to be against the rules of society, if you like, in one sense. But he didn't care because he wanted to please his devotee. He doesn't care for his name. He's God. He's a supreme Lord. Yet he's willing to be insulted. He's willing to take a bad name for himself as long as his devotee is happy. Bhishma made a vow, I will make you fight. Krishna made a vow, I will not fight. Who won? Guess what? The devotee won. The devotee's love is so great that Krishna will yield before that love. He will do anything for it. He will break his own promise. So Bhishma was fighting so strongly against Arjuna. Krishna at that time picked up the wheel of the chariot. He was flying towards Bhishma, and Bhishma was, wow, I wanted to see this form of yours. I'm so happy. Thank you so much, my dear Lord. Coming to kill me, but I'm so happy. Oh, okay. Look, it crashed. Should have put the chair here. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers the question, but Krishna's love for his devotee is greater than his love for his own reputation.
Thank you.
Mhm.
What is the name of Lord Hanuman's birth father?
Oh, Anjana is the mother. Who's the father? Can't remember now. Was it Keshav? Keshari, something like that. Keshari. Something like that. But actually the father is Lord Shiva, and his semen was taken by Vayu to the mother, Anjana. So actually, he's a product of Shiva and Vayu as well.
Who is the sage which cursed Hanuman to forget his powers?
Oh, who's a sage? Wow, you got some tough questions today. Can't remember. Who was it? Was it Angira? Might have been Angira or someone like that. Someone very, very, very powerful, extraordinarily powerful. Because
Like,
nobody could just.
Babaji, maybe Durvasa Muni.
Could it be Durvasa? It might have been. Might have been. Lokeshwar, got a job for you. See if you can Google it and find it while we're speaking, if possible. Okay, next question.
What does each head of Lord Brahma do?
His four heads represents the four Vedas, 4 directions. Actually, he's got many, many different classifications of those heads. Can't remember them all. Each one has a specific role in the creation of this world. So depending on, like, for example, with the head that's facing east, he would have created the heavenly planets, the higher planets, and the head facing south would have created the lower planetary systems, like that.
Ah, I see. How do you wake up someone to spiritual life? Like, how do you open their eyes?
Good question. We can't really, all we can do, because the relationship between God and the Jiva, the soul, is unique. Each one of us has a unique relationship. And all we can do is facilitate that relationship to start or take place or continue. And if we're thinking, I'm going to bring somebody to Krishna consciousness, that's probably not the right attitude. The mood is that you are a servant of the Lord, and the Lord is missing all of us, including myself, including yourself. And my mood is simply to facilitate your relationship with the Supreme Lord, because it's your relationship. I will try to see if I can bring you a little closer to him. The best way, especially if somebody is not really willing to listen to philosophy, is to give them prasad. If somebody is anti, perhaps, if you offer the food and then you give them the prasad, then automatically they are incurring sukriti, which is good karma, but unknown to them. And that will put them on the path. When somebody eats prasad, they're guaranteed not to have an animal body. They're guaranteed to have a human life, next life. So just that one act of giving prasad is, you're going to help a lot of people. So if somebody is not curious, not interested, anti perhaps, that's a good way to do it. If somebody is curious, then you can, give them a book, Prabhupada's book, especially because they're so potent. Or you can even try to explain, hey, you know what? This dilemma was faced by Arjun, and then Krishna spoke to him the Bhagavad Gita. It all depends on the nature of the person who is involved. Each person is different, each person is individual. Sometimes we stand on the street and we just hold out a book, and whoever takes, they take it. It's almost like you are facilitating that soul to come closer to the Lord. But all you're doing is you're like a postman, you're just delivering something to somebody from the Supreme Lord. So that's really the mood. We're just the postman. We can't make anybody God conscious. We don't have that Shakti or power. That's between God and that individual soul. But we can facilitate, we can help, we can, try to be humble in our service to the Supreme Lord and ask him how he wants us to serve him.
I see.
Mm.
Why would you want to pretend to be a guru?
Oh, there's a saying in Bharat, in India. If you want to be rich, become a businessman. Right? If you want to become rich, become an IT consultant. If you want to become richer, become a businessman. If you want to become richer than the businessman, become a politician, right? Because you get a lot of backhanders. But if you really want to become rich, become a God man, become a religious man or a God man. Because especially in Bharat, there's so many so-called religious people who actually mint it. They really make a lot of money. And they do it by, as you said, why do they want to become a guru? Because they, by becoming a guru, they can sort of have a very prestigious position, and people sometimes become blind and they give crazy amounts of money. Generally, they want to become gurus because they want the honor, they want the prestige, they want the luxury, and it's actually very disastrous for society. It's disastrous for that person, it's disastrous for the follower, and it's disastrous for the society as well. We should be very, very careful who we follow, because there's so many false gurus out there. There are some very genuine gurus as well, don't get me wrong. But yeah, if one wants to become wealthy, one becomes a God man. How crazy is that?
Is that why most genuine gurus won't take any money from anyone?
Yeah.
To not get blinded.
Yeah, or they'll take the money. What Prabhupada used to do? He used to get £1 million in a day and spend £1 million. Whatever came in went out. That's how it should be. Whatever donation comes, we accept it on behalf of the Lord, but then we give it at the same time. We use it to help others become closer to God as best as we can.
How do you know whether a person is a real guru?
You have to, well, it's a good question. You have to learn what a real guru is all about and observe that person for quite some time. Maybe 1 year, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. Observe. What is this person doing? How is he behaving? And similarly, the guru should observe the disciple. What is this fellow like? Is he nonsense who's going to cause trouble in the future? Or is he genuine? Is he really got a thirst for spiritual life and he wants to learn? It works both ways. How to find a guru, how to check out a guru. Observation. Firstly, you've got to know what the qualities of the guru are. One of the hardest things to learn in spiritual life is Guru Tattva, to understand the truth about the guru. Very, very hard to understand that. Very hard to understand that. But it's a very important thing to learn, understand as well at the same time. Very good question, by the way. And why do you ask that question, if you don't mind me asking?
It's just out of curiosity, because you said in Bharat there are loads of people who pretend to be gurus. Buddy said that, and it's been mentioned quite a few times. So I was curious why someone would want to pretend.
Right. I think if they're enamored by material wealth, that's a clear indication that this is not going to work. If they're only after money or possessions, then that should ring alarm bells.
Thank you. Would it be beneficial to remember our previous life?
No. You could be sitting next to the person, I'm not saying that's true, but who 10 lives ago stepped on your right toe, and you remember, and you want to get revenge, and all you're thinking about while you're sitting to that person is, how do I beat this person up?
I don't think I'd beat someone up if they stepped on my right toe 10 lives ago.
You know what I mean. You will constantly be thinking about somebody who's abused, even in this life, right? If somebody's had a go at us, we won't forget it for days, months, years. You know, you see somebody, after 20 years and think, hang on a minute, this person, he insulted me 20 years ago. I'm going to get my own back. Can you imagine if we remembered our past lives? So many people would have crossed our paths. And we were constantly thinking, I'm going to get my revenge on this person, that person. Even happens to the sages. There's two sages. They had an argument. And some kalpas passed. Kalpa means a day of Brahma. That's like 4.3 billion years. So some kalpas passed, right? Billions of years. When they met again, one of the sages said to the other sage, you insulted me a few kalpas ago. So best not to remember. Krishna is very kind. He's given us a clean slate. Don't have to worry about anything or anyone. Clean slate. And in this life, somebody done anything wrong, there's two rules that is very good to live by. Crikey, time's flown, isn't it? Two rules is very good to live by. One, if you've done something good for somebody else, forget it. Don't remember that. Right? Otherwise, you'll always be thinking, I've done something good for you, you better do something good for me. And if somebody's done bad to you, forget that as well. If you live with those two rules, you'll have a very peaceful mind. You'll have a very peaceful life. So if you've done something good to others, forget it. Ignore it. Don't expect anything back. If somebody's done bad to you, forget that as well. Don't think about revenge. Otherwise, life will not be peaceful.
What happens if you neglect like both of your dharmas, like your spiritual dharma and your dharma towards your family?
Mode of ignorance. You go towards the hellish planets.
Didn't Dhruva neglect his dharma towards his family when he went to the forest?
He was only 6 months, right? Didn't have any duties towards his mother or his father. But even if he had, because he was focused on his swadharma, his eternal dharma, he would not be considered sinful in any way.
What happens when you neglect material dharma?
What happens if you neglect your material duties? It won't help because your foundation is not so strong. It won't help you get established in your spiritual duties. If you neglect even your material duties, it's again mode of ignorance. You just gonna lounge around and be a pain to everybody, not helping anybody. So this is mode of ignorance means basically you're going down towards the animal kingdom in your next life, which is what animals do. They don't care for anyone. They just care for themselves. When's my next meal coming from, basically?
Just out of curiosity, has anyone ever invented a way to remember your previous life?
No, but sometimes people do remember their previous lives. There are many circumstances where, in fact, there was a Professor Ian Stevenson in America. He's died now. But he did a lot of research on past life experiences and also out-of-body experiences. He's got a lot of research. He's written books, I think, on this. So there's a lot of information out there about people who remember their previous lives. And generally, they're not very happy. There was this kid, I think 5-year-old, maybe even smaller. He kept telling his family about a village. He kept telling his family about a village that he lived in his previous life, and how he owned a shop, how he had a lot of money. He was only 5-year-old. Eventually, the family got fed up, and they took him to this village that he kept telling them that he came from. And they took him. He pointed out, "This is my shop," and he went into the shop. His wife was there. She was with another man. He said to her, "You leave her alone. She's my wife." He's a 5-year-old kid. Right? He also stashed some money away, and he found that he pointed them to that money. So it was like, wow. But after a certain age, one forgets. So generally, when children are young, they can remember their past lives, and then you forget. But some older people have remembered through past life regression. Yeah.
So, like, if someone saw something which might have been significant to them in their past life, it might bring something back. Like, make them have a reaction.
Yeah, deja vu. That often happens. Oh, I've been here before. I've done this before. I've seen this before.
It feels familiar.
Yeah, this is familiar. Often people have that experience because we may have had some sort of experience like that in the past. Very
because
true.
Apparently, when me and Kishu were young, there used to be this sage. I can't remember who his name was. But he used to come on TV, and then every time he came on TV, we had no idea who he was at that age, but every time he came on, we'd just say Radhe Radhe, and then we'd just carry on whatever we were doing.
Interesting. Very good. Very good.
Why do we say Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 3 times before opening the Bhagavad Gita?
Oh, no, sure. Because Prabhupada did that. My Guru Maharaj did that. So I'm just following tradition. Prahlad Maharaj chanted Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya all the time. It's one of the mantras which are very, very powerful and effective. Of course, we've got the Maha mantra, which is considered to be Maha mantra. But Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya is very, yeah. It's because the Bhagavatam starts with Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. That's why. That's the first 4 words in the Bhagavatam.
When you go through suffering, is the suffering a test from the Lord?
It's a blessing to go through suffering. I know most people will be thinking, what the heck are you talking about? How can suffering be a blessing? See, if you're always happy, you never think about the higher values of life because you're always immersed in happiness. But if there's some unhappiness, some suffering, then you begin to realize, actually, yeah, this world is actually not such a nice place. Otherwise, you'll be thinking, oh, this world is such a nice place. Let's not go anywhere else. This is heaven. This is a spiritual world. But it's not. We know that there's something called death. So when suffering comes, the mood of the devotee is, my suffering should have been a lot worse, and the Lord has minimized it. That's the mood. And this suffering is just the Lord's love bite. He loves me. He's just given me a love bite so that I remember him. The suffering is good, especially when you remember the Lord more and more. Kunti Mata, she prays in the Bhagavatam, my dear Lord, give me more suffering. Because when I get this suffering, I remember you more and more. Of course, we don't want to go to that extent because suffering will come of its own accord anyway to us, because that's the nature of this world. So we don't want to go asking for it. But when it comes, we understand that this is actually a blessing from the Lord. It's not a curse, it's a blessing. He could have made it, it could have been a lot worse. And also it's just to remind us okay, this is not your world. There's another world beyond this where you belong.
When you get stuck in the cycle of karma, how do you break it if you always have to fulfill your karma?
Yeah. It's like, you know, when you go on a journey over abroad and you come to on the other side, and you know, from the aeroplane you get off and there's the bags are in this what's it called, the escalator, or it just goes round and round and round and round. So we are in that situation at this moment in time. This law of karma, the samsara, we're in this cycle of birth and death, birth and death, birth. How do we get out of it? So just like in the airport, the passenger will pick up his luggage and take it. We also need somebody to pick us up and take us back. And that is two personalities, the Guru and Govinda, or the Supreme Lord. Guru and Govinda. So Guru is needed and Govinda is needed. They're both needed to get us out of this world. So if one has a sincere desire, Krishna will send a Guru, and that Guru will give us Krishna. So that's the trick, how to get out of this world. Guru, Govinda. And in order to get Krishna, in order to get Guru, we need to sincerely pray to the Lord.
How is it possible that sometimes learned sages commit sin?
So learned sages commit sin. Because this is part of life. You know, it's just this Maya, this material world is so strong. It can even, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, even one of the senses can distract a learned person. We have to always be very careful and on the guard to protect ourselves from getting carried away. Even one of our senses can mislead the mind and take away one's intelligence. There's no guarantees. And often learned sages may seem like they're fallen, but actually it's a warning to us from the Lord that don't get too puffed up, don't get too proud of your knowledge, because at any moment one can fall down. At any moment Maya can attack. So we always have to be on the guard, try to be on the guard. Yes, I am nothing, my Lord. You are everything. I seek your protection from your own energy, your own Maya, so that I don't fall under its trap again and again.
What do you do? What if you do bad karma out of fear? Like if you were scared of a bug and then you crushed it by accident.
Yeah, it's not good to attack. If one is attacked, one has a right to defend. So if a mosquito attacks you, you have a right to defend yourself. But if a bug is just harmless, he should be left alone. Maybe you want to shoo him away from our place, where we are. That's a different matter. But we try not to kill. I remember one time my spiritual master, he was in Bharat and he was sleeping, and overnight, suddenly, in the middle of the night, suddenly he was covered in loads of bugs. And I remember him just gently, very carefully removing each bug and placing it gently on the floor. It was amazing. It was a class in art, you know. So amazing how he didn't just jump up and brush himself off and whatever happens to the bugs happens to the bugs. I don't care. He was very gentle. That was a good example. Of course, if there's a dangerous animal, like a snake, poisonous snake, we have to protect ourselves. No doubt about that.
Did did the demigods ever accept animal sacrifices?
Oh yeah,
And why did they accept them?
Because generally the animals, if they were sacrificed, it was done by learned Brahmins, qualified Brahmins, and the animal would get the body of a human being. Otherwise, they were not allowed to perform such sacrifices. So it was for the benefit of the animal.
I see. And last question.
Wow.
If your pet is present when Kirtan is played, will they get the benefit of becoming a human in their next life? Because they
Wow,
listen to Hari?
definitely. And especially if you're giving prashad. Definitely is assured a human being, human body. And who knows, you know, anything can happen. If your pet remembers or hears the holy name of the Lord at the end of his life, who knows what can happen? Krishna says, whoever remembers me at the end of my life, end of his life, will return back to me, Krishna, he says. So who knows?
Thank you. That's it.
Wow, my goodness. Thank you so much for your questions. We're actually out of time for doing anything on the Gita. How many questions do you have on the quiz?
12.
Okay, I think let's postpone that to next week, if you don't mind, because
Okay.
next week you won't have a quiz. So, and next week Pari will be back and she'll deal with you. No, but fantastic questions. Anybody else got any question? Niklesh, Varad, Lokeshwar, Kishore, and somebody else here as well.
No, Prabhuji, I just landed back from Bharat, so I'm still absorbing. Okay. Excellent questions, no doubt. Very fascinating to see the conversation.
Yeah, it's fascinating questions. Niklesh, I just came back from Bharat as well on Thursday.
Oh,
So-
nice. Let's catch up sometime face to face if that's okay.
Hey, yeah, are you in the south of London by any chance?
I am in north of London, meaning
Oh.
part of north. I am in Borehamwood. So,
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay.
but
Thank
let's
you.
catch up, I think, anytime.
Yeah, be good. In fact, next Sunday, if you're free, come to the south. We're doing Abhishek of Bal Gopal.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah. You must be on our Gita group, right?
Yes, I am there. Yes.
I'll put the message on there.
Sure,
If you're
sure.
free, please come, 5 o'clock. It's a good time so that you can get back early as well.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions at all? I have to say, Ishwari Kishori, very, very good. It does exercise the mind a little bit, but it's very good to get these questions, and especially the mood you ask in is superb. So thank you so much. Really, really good. Congratulations to you. Huh?
Thank you, Prabhuji. We wouldn't be able to ask the questions without you teaching us.
Yeah, you got a great mood. Fantastic mood. Thank you so much. Amazing. Great children. Thank you, everybody. And we can stop there. We'll continue next Sunday with chapter 4, and hopefully Pari will be back with us. Thank you, everybody. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Bye.
Take care.